Are you ready to prime your focus, to move past scattered days and channel your energy into what really matters? This is Primed for ADHD, the podcast for high-functioning women who want simple, brain-friendly ways to feel more in control. I'm your host, Andrea Toole, ADHD coach and educator. Welcome back to the Primed for ADHD podcast. Today I want to talk about something simple that makes a real difference for ADHD brains, especially when life feels unstable or hard to gain traction. It's called a 30-day anchor plan. If you're listening to this in January or at any point when life feels unsettled, you're not alone. A lot of people with ADHD feel a pull to resist when things start to feel off. New plans, new routines, new systems. At the same time, there's often a lot of fatigue underneath that, a sense that I can't keep rebuilding everything from scratch, or maybe it's just a quiet voice saying, I can't keep rebuilding my life every few months. That tension is exactly why anchors matter. A lot of people with ADHD reach a point where they start saying things like, I used to manage this better. I don't know why everything feels so fragile right now. I feel like one small thing throws my entire day off. That feeling usually comes with a lot of self-blame. People assume that they've lost discipline, motivation, or focus. But what's actually happening is often much simpler. Their day has lost its reference points. And I think a lot of us really noticed that during the pandemic time. Or any time, like, say, even during vacations, like maybe recently during the holidays, even if you weren't on vacation, when schedules got thrown off. So here's why reference points matter for ADHD brains. ADHD brains don't do well in a wide open day. When everything feels optional, the brain has to work much harder just to decide what happens next. And that effect adds up quickly. At the same time, too much structure can feel suffocating. Miss one step, and the whole thing feels ruined. So people swing back and forth between chaos and rigidity, never quite landing anywhere stable. And here's something I say often during my coaching work. ADHD brains need function with flexibility. They crave predictability, and they resist rigidity at the same time. It's a paradox. It can sound contradictory, but it's not. Predictability helps your brain feel safe. It reduces the amount of energy spent deciding what comes next. We need schedules, so that means concrete deadlines and meeting times. I have never met a person with ADHD who didn't benefit from a deadline. Without a deadline, you can procrastinate forever. Rigidity, on the other hand, can feel controlling, especially if your ADHD comes with a side of oppositional defiance. Oppositional defiance, by the way, oppositional defiance disorder, and ADHD are commonly co-occurring conditions. And the latest research I could find from Attitude Magazine's website said that 40% of children with ADHD also have oppositional defiance disorder. And prior to that, I found an article that was published on the Johns Hopkins website in 2011 that reported it was up to 60% of children have ADHD with ODD. So a wide open day. Too much structure can feel suffocating. Miss one step and the whole thing falls apart. It feels ruined. And this is why so many routines work beautifully until they don't. And this is so topical in January when people feel the pressure to take up new things and then feel like they failed. When routines stop working, people often blame themselves. Our thoughts are hijacked by what I call my inner gremlins, and Dr. Daniel Amen refers to the automatic negative thoughts, or ants. We feel bad, we tell ourselves we failed, and we ruminate. Some of us, at least. I would never suggest that everyone with ADHD experiences ADHD the same way, but a lot of people are like that. We ruminate. We get stuck in our heads. So people swing back and forth between chaos and rigidity, never quite landing anywhere stable. What helps most ADHD brains is not more structure. It's something steady to orient ourselves around. And that's where anchors come in. So what's an anchor? An anchor is a moment in your day that's reliable enough for your brain to recognize. It is not a routine, it's a reference point. Something your brain can reliably orient around even on low energy days. So to turn an anchor into a metaphor here, an anchor moors watercraft, right? So think of anchors the way sailors think about buoys. A buoy is an anchored float serving as a navigation mark to show reefs or other hazards, or for mooring. They don't dictate where you go. They give you something stable to navigate from. Anchors. Anchors, in the context of daily life, they reduce decision fatigue. They signal transitions, which people with ADHD are not great with. And they give your nervous system a sense of continuity and security. And the best part? They work because they are simple, just like my prime framework for ADHD management. Your reference point anchor doesn't have to be perfect, but it happens often enough to help you keep your shit together. So let me make this very concrete. Anchors are often built around things you already do, often something small. So it could be making coffee, letting the dog out, opening your laptop, brushing your teeth, getting into bed at night. These moments already exist in your life, right? You're not creating a new habit. You're attaching intention to an existing one. Or you could call it habit stacking. I've heard of that. But these are routines. We're treating anchors as signals rather than background noise. They're signals that say, this part of the day is ending, or this part of the day is beginning, or this part of the day is ending. That kind of signaling matters more than most people realize. So instead of thinking, I need the perfect morning routine, or asking what already happens most mornings that I can build around. That shift alone reduces resistance for ADHD brains. And if you miss a day of routine, no problem, just get back on track the next day. No big deal. So here's what I suggest starting with you. When people hear about anchors, their instinct is often to add more than necessary. Morning routine, evening routine, weekly reset, monthly review, etc., etc. And that's usually when things fall apart. So I suggest starting with just 2. Keep it manageable. 1 in the morning, 1 in the evening. Less is more. No need to complicate it more than that or give you more to feel you failed at. 2 points of the day where your brain can pause and say, okay, here I am. It's manageable, right? Sure, more would be nice, but ADHD brains tend to turn systems into projects, and our ego gets involved wanting us to win at a non-existent competition. And when the system becomes a job, it stops being supportive. When it becomes competition with ourselves, the need to win can create excessive pressure, unless we gamify it to keep it fun and motivating. I mean, if that's your motivation, that's your motivation. But 2 anchors create bookends to your day, give you structure without pressure, and are much easier to sustain during hormonal shifts or stress or burnout. And this is especially important for ADHD in midlife when energy is less predictable. So first, morning routines. Morning anchors, sorry, not morning routines. Your morning anchor should have these 3 things. Be realistic, be repeatable, and be emotionally neutral or even enjoyable. A morning anchor doesn't have to energize you or make you productive. It just needs to be recognizable. So for some people, that's coffee by a window. For others, it's a short walk or sitting down and writing one sentence before opening email or reviewing one priority of the day. So if you're thinking that seems too small, that is a good sign. Small is what sticks. The point isn't what you do. The point is getting your brain, the point is that your brain begins to associate the moment with starting the day. That's the anchor. Over time, that association creates stability. Second, evening anchors. So evening anchors are often more important than we think. Evening anchors are often overlooked, especially by people who've spent years pushing through exhaustion. Evening anchors matter just as much, sometimes more. See, ADHD brains often struggle with downshifting. We stay on long past the point when our bodies won't rest. We push through it. We ignore that need for rest. And I found that I have even more trouble with downshifting than I used to. It's one of those questions of, is it my ADHD? Is it my perimenopause? Is it both? And if you want to hear me talk about perimenopause, that's going to be the next episode. So make sure you're subscribed to this podcast. ADHD brains are good at staying on, but we're not always good at switching off. We're not always good at noticing when it's time to power down. So, an evening anchor might be turning off your laptop and putting it away out of sight. You don't see that I'm making the hand gesture about putting it away. It could be dimming the lights, a short stretch, a breathwork session, writing one line about the day, having a cup of tea. Again, nothing impressive, nothing big, just something that marks the transition. That transition matters more than any productivity work. And I find transitions really important. I even sometimes put them on my calendar and have them announced to me by my smart home. My smart home will tell me it is time to log off for the day, because having that voice is like having a parent tell me to go to bed. The transition matters more than any productivity hack. So it's not about winding down perfectly. There will not be a perfection. It's about signaling this part of the day is ending. So now we're going to talk about the 30-day container. And this is where most people usually get stuck. Well, maybe not most people, but a lot of people. A missed day gets interpreted as failure, and instead of continuing, they decide the whole thing didn't work out. That's it, giving up. That reaction has less to do with motivation and more to do with how ADHD brains perceive time. It's not a mindset issue. It is time blindness. A missed day can feel final, even when it's not. A 30-day container? Now, 30-day container changes the emotional math. It gives you a longer horizon. Instead of asking, did I do this perfectly? The question becomes, am I still experimenting? Did I do this perfectly versus, am I still experimenting? So for the next 30 days, you're experimenting. You're not proving anything. You're not restarting from zero. Just let your ego go. Just enjoy the process. If you miss a day, you continue. If something stops working, you adjust. Nothing needs to restart. Anchors are meant to evolve with you. Here's why consistency matters more than intensity. This part can be uncomfortable to hear. ADHD brains often equate progress with intensity. Big plans feel motivating, small steps feel insignificant, but intensity burns out fast. Consistency builds trust with yourself. Consistency doesn't mean daily success. It means staying in a relationship with the practice. Remember that, consistency. Staying in a relationship to the practice is not perfection. It's not winning or losing. Anchors work because they are boring in the best way. I know, ADHD brains hate boring. But anchors don't demand motivation. They quietly create momentum. showing up most days, letting the anchor evolve, not punishing yourself for fluctuations. That's how trust builds. Not through intensity, but through repetition that doesn't demand perfection. I know, mine are never perfect. So here's what comes up when people try this. If you're feeling resistance right now, that's normal. You might be thinking, oh, I've tried things like this before. Or I won't stick with it. Or this feels too simple. Yeah, simplicity can feel suspicious, and we often prefer to do things a hard way, even if we don't realize it, right? Yeah. That resistance doesn't mean it won't work. It means your brain is protecting you from disappointment. When people start working with anchors, other feelings that can surface include relief because things feel simpler. I know, again, you might not like simple, you might not want simple, you might resist simple, but just let simple happen. And often a feeling of grief because people realize how long they've been forcing themselves to function without enough support. And all of that is normal. Anchors aren't about proving anything, they're about supporting your brain. Here's how this fits into the bigger primed picture, because you're listening to the Primed for ADHD podcast. I hope you're subscribed. Anchors are one small part of how I think about supporting ADHD brains. And as one piece of the ADHD framework, they sit at the intersection of routine, that's the R in primed, mental state, that's the M in primed, and physical cues. Anchors don't fix everything, but they create a foundation strong enough to build on. Without anchors, everything else feels harder. With anchors, the day has structure, day and night. You can delineate between day and night better. I am constantly looking for the proper anchor, and in the past, my anchor wasn't the most healthy anchor, but it helped me cope, or at least it helped me transition. So if you want to experiment with this over the next month, here's what I'd suggest. This is your only assignment after this episode. Yes, there's homework. Choose one morning anchor, one evening anchor. Write them down. Keep them simple. Stay curious instead of critical. Commit to experimenting for 30 days. You are not after perfection or daily success. You are after continuity. That's it. That's all. You don't have to put pressure on yourself. Unless that pressure is motivating, but even then, that's not sustainable. Wrapping up. Stability doesn't have to come from doing more. It doesn't come from doing more. Anchors aren't about forcing structure. It comes from giving your brain something steady to return to. And if you want a little help mapping this out, I put together a one-page 30-day anchor plan you can find in the show notes. Next episode, we are talking about what happens when ADHD meets perimenopause and why so many women feel like their coping strategies suddenly stop working. Until then, take care of the brain you have. It's been working hard for a long time. And if you're not already subscribed to the podcast, please do. You can rate and review it any place you can. I think only Apple Podcasts has that function, which is really bizarre at this point since there are so many podcast platforms. But you can recommend it to friends, and you can go to my website, sign up for my newsletter, poke around. I have lots of articles there, and see what I'm up to. So I look forward to the next podcast and speaking with you again. And also at my website, it's a good place for you to contact me and let me know what you thought of this episode. All right. Bye.